Today is a very special day. First of all, it's a special day because it's a special day on the Chabad calendar. Bet B'Iyar, the second day of Iyar, is the Rebbe Maharash, fourth Rebbe of Chabad. It's his birthday. He was famous for saying, Lechatchila Ariber. The world says when you have a problem, you try going around it, you try going under it, and then if you can't, you go over. But I say, to begin with, go over.
To begin?
To begin with, go over. Jump over it. The second reason why it's a special day today is because today is 1 year since we began the Rambam. We started last year on the second day of Iyar, and it was a little bit of a lechatchila ariber move. It was like we weren't sure where it was going to go.
Yeah, I should remember that.
If it would take off. And Baruch Hashem, today we're celebrating a birthday. 1 year of learning Rambam straight every day. This year was a bit of a longer year because it's a Shnat HaIbur. There was 2 Adars. But the same way Hashem gave us the strength to do it for a year straight, so may He give us the strength to complete the entire Rambam, which is going to take us about another year and a half, almost 2 years. Amen to that. All right. Hilchos Terumos Perek Chi, the laws of the Truma separation, chapter 9. So chapter 9 is all about doubts. Doubts concerning the status of people that can eat Truma. So we have to remind ourselves that when a Kohen is married to a regular Jewish woman, his wife is allowed to eat Truma on his behalf. Same thing if a Kohen owns a slave, the slave can eat Truma on the Kohen's behalf. And the same thing if a Kohen owns an animal, that animal can also eat Truma on the Kohen's behalf. Chapter 9, it's a very short chapter. It deals with doubts in all 3 categories. What if you have a wife who's in doubt whether she's still married to the Kohen? What if you have a slave who he's in doubt whether he's still owned by the Kohen? And what happens if you have an animal who's in doubt whether you have the ownership of the Kohen? And basically the rule is going to be that whenever you're in doubt, you rule stringently. That's pretty much the rule. So let's see it inside. Halacha Aleph. Ha'isha echeles bitruma ad sheyagia get liyada. The basic law is that a woman, a wife of a Kohen, can always eat Truma on the husband's behalf until she gets a divorce. Until a divorce reaches her hands. Oy liyad shlucha she'asasa lekabala. Or at least to the hand of an agent who she appointed to receive the divorce. This is from a while back. We have to remember these terms. From the laws of divorce, there are 3 kinds of agents, 3 kinds of shluchim. Shliach Kabbalah. Shliach Kabbalah means an agent of the woman. She basically appoints somebody to be in her place. You be my hand. You receive the divorce for me. So in that case, the woman is divorced when the agent receives the document. Another type of agent is what's called Shliach Hilacha. Basically, he looked at as the man's agent. He's an extension of the man. He's bringing the divorce to the woman. In such a case, only the woman can make the divorce. She has to get it in her hands. And then sometimes you have what's called the Shliach Hava'a, where the woman, it's the woman's agent, but it's the woman's agent to deliver the divorce, and it's also only a divorce once it reaches the woman. So here the Rambam is talking about the first category of agent, Shliach Kabbalah. Shliach Kabbalah is literally in place of the woman. So the moment the divorce reaches the hand of the Shliach Kabbalah, she's divorced, and if she's married to a Kohen, no more Truma. The guiding principle is, anytime a woman is in doubt whether she's divorced, she should no longer eat Truma. We have to consider stringently that she's divorced, and she's not married to the Kohen anymore, so no more Truma. Same thing, by the way, the other way. If she's the daughter of a Kohen, married to a regular Jew, so if she's divorced, she can go back to eating Truma. If she's in doubt whether she's divorced, we have to assume she's still married and she cannot eat Truma. So it goes both ways for stringency. Ha'isha she'asasa shliach lekabel lagita. A woman appoints an agent to receive her get. Again, the first type of agent. She wants this guy to be in her stead. Asura lechol bitruma miyad. Since the moment she makes the agent can technically get the divorce from the husband. So from the moment she makes the agent, she's considered to be divorced, and she can no longer eat Truma right away. V'im amra, but if she told the guy, Kabel li giti b'makan play listen, my husband is in this and this city, I want you to go and get the get from him in that place. Eina asura ad sheyagia shliach lo yaseh makim. So then, she's only prohibited till the shliach reaches that place, because that's the first place where he can fulfill his mission. Shalcha shliach lahavi lagita. What if she sent an agent to bring back the divorce? That's the third category of agent here. It's the woman's agent, but the agency is, you bring it back to me, and I'm only going to be divorced when I get a hold of the document. So then indeed, she can continue to eat truma until the divorce reaches her hand. If somebody tells his wife, here's a divorce document, I only want it to go into effect 1 hour before I die. Well, right now could be the hour before you die. You never know. So she's forbidden to eat truma right away. Why would a guy do this? People would do this when they saw that they were childless. Husband and wife were childless. If the husband dies, the wife is not going to have to do yibum, levirate marriage with the brother. To save her from that, so he would give her a document and he would say, this is a divorce document an hour before I die. So that way, even if he dies childless, the woman is considered to be divorced. Halacha beis. Here's another case, or another couple of cases of doubt. Ir shehi kifua karkum. A city which was surrounded by a siege. This case here at the bottom left. Usfina hamitarefes bayam. And a boat or a ship that's shaking, literally. It means like it's in a stormy sea, and it's about to capsize. Somebody who goes out to be judged for a capital case. In these three scenarios, as long as we don't know otherwise, all the men in this city, all the men in this ship, the man in the courtroom is considered to be alive. And if they're Kohanim and they have wives, the wives can continue to eat truma. Same thing if they're the opposite. If they're regular Jews and their wives are Kohanim, they have to consider them alive and they cannot eat truma. Needless to say, if somebody goes into a caravan that's traveling in the desert, unless you know otherwise, the husband is considered to be alive. But if it goes to the next level, but if the city was not just laid siege, it was conquered by the siege, they literally broke into it, or the ship got lost at sea, not just storming, it's lost in the ocean, or somebody going out to be killed from a non-Jewish court, he's not in the courtroom anymore, his law was decided, he's going to be killed. Or somebody who was dragged away by an animal, or an avalanche of stones fell on him, or a river swept him away. In all of these cases, we have to go, we can't consider them alive. We have to place the stringencies of being dead and being alive. Lefichach, therefore, if the wife was the daughter of a Kohen and she's married to a regular Jew, or the wife is a regular Jewess married to a Kohen, in both scenarios, they cannot eat truma. The Kohen who's married to the Jew has to consider her husband alive. And the regular Jew who's married to the Kohen has to consider her husband dead. And therefore, in either case, you cannot eat truma. But if you're in a Jewish court, and your fate was decided, and they brought you to the place of stoning, to be killed, there's no stringencies here. At this point, you're considered dead. In a non-Jewish court, there was kind of a doubt. Until the guy's actually killed, you don't consider him dead. But in a Jewish court, once you're out there on the way to be killed, you're considered dead. And his wife cannot eat truma in the scenario where it's a regular Jewish woman married to a Kohen. In the scenario where it's a daughter of a Kohen married to a Yisrael, then we also consider him dead and she could partake of truma. Halacha Gimel. Hinicha baila goiseis b'mdina acheres. If she was with her husband, and her husband was on the deathbed, goiseis means like he's in his last breaths, his last death throes. And the last time she saw him, that's how he was, and she left him. She traveled away, but she left him dying. Whether she was the daughter of a Kohen, the wife of a regular Jew, or a regular Jew, the wife of a Kohen, she cannot eat truma, because most people in their death throes will die. Meaning that you have to go to both stringencies. You have to assume that the husband died, huh?
Things happen all the time.
Yeah. Well, this is the halacha, roiv. We go by the majority. The majority is that a husband in this scenario will die. Therefore, if her husband was a Kohen, she cannot eat truma. On the other hand, maybe he's going to live. So if she's a regular Jew, she cannot yet eat truma.
He wouldn't die against the law.
If he wouldn't die, then she can continue to eat truma because she's still married to the Kohen.
But she left him.
Right, that's the whole thing. Since she doesn't know, we go with the roiv. But we also go not with the roiv if she's a daughter of a Kohen married to a Jew, and we say, no, maybe he's still alive, she can't eat truma. If the wife is away from the husband, and two witnesses show up. One witness says he's dead, the other witness says he's not dead. You go strictly. In either case, she cannot eat truma. In other words, if she's a regular Jew married to the Kohen, you have to assume he's dead and not eat truma. If she's a Kohen married to a regular Jew, you have to assume he's not dead and you still can't eat truma. Halacha dalet. Amra la tsarasa ay achas mehachamish nashim she'eino ne'emanes laha'ida. If her co-wife or any of the 5 women who are not believed to say testimony about her husband said shemeis baila, that her husband died. We had in the laws of divorce a whole section of laws about what's called the aguna, a woman who's not sure if her husband is dead. And typically, when you're not sure if the husband passed away, all you need is one witness. Sages were lenient, one witness is enough to testify. However, there are 5 women that were worried that they hate this wife and they want to get at her. So they would testify falsely. They would tell her that her husband is dead so she could remarry, and then the husband will show up and all the kids will be mamzerim, will be illegitimate. So there are 5 women who are never believed, and that is a mother-in-law, stepdaughter, a potential sister-in-law, and an actual sister-in-law, and a co-wife, the tzara. So the Rambam begins with the tzara, the co-wife, or any of the 5 women, come to this woman and say, hey, you know your husband, he's dead. Since she wouldn't believe their testimony, to allow her to remarry, if her husband is a Kohen, she can continue to eat truma, assuming that her husband is alive, until somebody who is believable enough to allow her to get remarried. If he says that the husband is dead, then we treat him as dead, and she can no longer eat truma. So that covers the laws relating to doubts about a wife. Now we move on to the slave. When a Kohen frees his slave, the moment he transfers ownership of the document of freedom, either he gives it to the slave himself, or he gives it to somebody else on the slave's behalf, that's the moment that he disqualifies the slave from eating truma, because now he's no longer belonging to the Kohen. In any scenario where a slave is considered free, but he's still waiting for his emancipation document, as will be explained in the Rambam's 12th book, in the end of the section of laws relating to slaves. Even so, he's forbidden to eat truma. There are certain scenarios where we consider a slave to be free, but he still needs to get the document. So you would think that maybe he still belongs to the Kohen in that way. No. If he goes free, he's free, he can no longer eat truma. Halacha vav, interesting scenario. A person sees that maybe he's dying soon or whatever it is, he's done being rich. So he writes a document transferring ownership of all his possessions to somebody else. And he already did the proper acquisition to transfer the property. Part of the property was slaves. So let's say David is the Kohen, right? David is our resident Kohen. So he's the Kohen. He owns a whole bunch of properties and slaves. And he transfers ownership of everything to you. Now, including the slaves. The recipient of the gift, you're quiet. Initially, when he hands you the document, you're quiet. But then you cry out in protest. I don't want the gift. So now we have to see what's the protest about. What does the protest mean? It's a doubt. First option is the fact that you protested proves that to begin with you never wanted to accept the gift, which means the slaves never left David the Kohen's possession, which means that they can still eat truma. Or maybe the protest after the silence was actually a later retraction. In other words, you wanted to get the gift, then later you realize this is just going to be a hassle, so you protested the gift. But at that point, you've already accepted the gift, and now you own the slaves, not the Kohen, so they cannot eat truma. Therefore, out of doubt, the the slaves never get to eat truma. Bein shahaya Rabbi Yisrael, Sheni Yisrael, v'harishen kohen. Whether it's the scenario that I just described, where the first master was the Kohen and the second master was a regular Jew. Bein shahaya Rabbi Rishon Yisrael v'hasheni kohen. But the truth is, it also applies in the opposite scenario. If you had given the gift to David the Kohen, since there's a doubt whether you're still the owner, the slave still can't eat truma. So in either case, there's a possibility that they're owned currently by a regular Israelite Jew, so they cannot eat truma. Halacha Zayin. From here to the end of the chapter, we talk about animals. Yisrael shesachar behema mikoyen. If a Jew, regular Jew, rents an animal from a Kohen, ma'achila truma, he can feed it truma, because in essence it belongs to the Kohen. The Kohen shesachar behemas Yisrael, but if a Kohen rents an animal from a regular Jew, afal pishu chayav b'mzen Yisrael, even though as the renter, he's obligated to pay for the sustenance of the animal, lo yachilena truma. He still cannot feed it truma mipei she'eino kinyan kaspa, because the animal, even though it's being rented by him, is not owned by him. Halacha ches Yisrael shesham para mikoyen lefatma. This was a very common practice in those days. You would give your animal to a shepherd or a special professional fattener, and he would fatten your animal, and then you would split the profits. So the regular Jew receives a cow from a Kohen to fatten it, v'liyas hashvach beineim, and the profits will be split between them. Lo yachilena b'truma. The Jew cannot feed the animal truma, afal pi sheyesh lakohen chelik b'shivcha, even though the Kohen owns part of the profits, but the essence, the core animal, doesn't belong to the Kohen. Because when you, in this deal, the shepherd or the fattener would... I know, but right. So the answer to that is, when the shepherd would receive such a animal, he would accept responsibility to replace its value if anything happened to it. So it really became like his. And the Kohen's only ownership was in the profits. But in the opposite scenario, Aval Kohen shesham para mi Yisrael lefatma, if the Kohen was the fattener, and he received the cow to fatten it, afal pisha yesh li Yisrael chelik bashvach, even though in the end the Jew's going to get part of the profit, hoyil v'gufa la kohen, since the body of the animal at this state belongs to the kohen, shari shama al atzmeh, because he accepted it upon himself to be responsible for it. Harei zeh ma'achila truma. So now you can feed truma because it belongs to the kohen. Halacha tes parasei shal Yisrael sheyolda b'char. This is fascinating. If a regular Jew's cow gave birth to a firstborn cow, so the firstborn cow we know belongs to the kohen. So already while it's in the possession of the Jew, ma'achila truma, the Jew can feed it truma. Shah b'char lakohenim, because the b'char it's anyway going to the kohen. Additionally, a person can store karshinim. Karshinim is vetch. It's a kind of a plant that was used for animal food, and you can put it into your birdhouse. You don't have to worry that maybe the doves are going to come and eat from it. It's not your responsibility. You can store it there. The commentaries say it's only because karshinim is rabbinic truma, not biblical, but that's the point. Halacha Yud, the Rambam concludes, Yirah Eli, it seems to me, this is a new law of the Rambam. And just to understand this quickly, in the laws of sale, there are two stages. Whenever a Jew buys something from another Jew, there are two stages. Number one is the payment, what's called giving the money. And then there's what's called meshicha. Meshicha means you have to pull it into your domain. Biblically speaking, just when I give you the money, the object becomes mine already. But the rabbis were worried that if just the money makes it mine, then once you get the money as the seller, you won't care about my object. So they said, no. Even after you get the money, it only belongs to the buyer once the buyer actually takes it. Takes possession. This is the word I'm looking for. Exactly. It says that Rambam Yirah Eli, therefore it seems to me, she'imachar hakoyin paraseh li Yisrael v'lokach hadamim, if a kohen has an animal, which means he can feed it truma, he sells it to a regular Jew, he takes the money, even though the buyer didn't yet pull it into his possession. Right? You see the Kohen's holding the money over here, and he tells the guy, look, the cow's right there in the barn, but the Jew hasn't yet taken it. It's forbidden to feed it truma. Even though, rabbinically speaking, it's not yet the Israelites till he takes possession of it, for this law we go stringently. Biblically speaking, just the money already acquires it for you, as will be explained in the laws of buying and selling. And therefore, we have to rule stringently and say that it already doesn't belong to the Kohen, he can't feed it truma. On the other hand, as well, we go stringently. V'imachar Yisrael lakayin, but if it was the opposite scenario, if it was a Jew selling the animal to the Kohen, afal pisha naslan adamim, even though he gave the money. And biblically speaking, the money acquires it, so it should belong to the Kohen. No, no eating truma until you take possession. In other words, we always go stringently. It only becomes yours to feed a truma when it actually fully becomes yours for the Kohen, and less when it becomes yours for the Israelite.